What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel, and it's time to give you my 2023/2024 college football playoff predictions heading into the 2023 college football season. And how this video works, we're going to give you my four teams that I think are going to make it to the college football playoff this year. I don't feel very confident with these picks, but there is some teams that I do feel very confident that would make the college football playoff this year, but there are two teams on here in my standings that I don't feel very confident with. But looking back to my last year's predictions, I had Alabama, Ohio State, Utah, and Georgia in my college football playoff predictions from last year. I got two of the teams right, but Alabama and obviously Utah did not live up to the expectations that I thought they would. But this year, I'm really, hopefully I'm very confident with my predictions. So again, how this video works, we're going to be basing this off of my predictions, my official predictions, my regular season predictions, and then basing them off of conference standings / conference championship predictions as well. But let's get right into it here. Here's the bracket for the college football playoff this season. You see the number 1 versus number 4 seeded matchup will be held in the Sugar Bowl, and then the number 2 versus number 3 matchup will be held in the Rose Bowl. So I'm going to give you all the teams here in my top 4 standings, and then I will give you a prediction for the semifinal matchups and also give you a national champion at the end of this video as well. But we'll start with my number 1 seed, and I think everybody knows who that is, and I think it's an easy pick here. I think they have the easiest path in all of college football, and that's going to be the Georgia Bulldogs. Georgia is my number 1 seed this year. Last year, they were my number 4 seed. I thought they would lose the SEC championship last year, but that didn't turn out to be the case because Alabama was not in it last year. And Georgia this year, I do have them beating Alabama in the SEC championship, so there's no reason for me, to put Georgia here at number 1. And like I said, they have the easiest path in all college football. Their schedule really sets up nicely. They have probably one of the easiest schedules, I believe, out of all the top Power 5 teams. If you look at that schedule, the only real tough test on there for Georgia is that Tennessee game on the road, and I've been saying all offseason that's the game they could probably potentially lose in the regular season. But I do have them also, winning the conference championship. Maybe they can get in there as a one-loss team, but I have them winning it all in the SEC and going undefeated. And surprisingly, Georgia is the only team that I predicted to go undefeated this year at 12-0. And if you count the conference championship, it's now 13-0. So Georgia here at my number 1 seed. Let's now go to my number 2 seed here. And this was also an easy pick here for me. I have them winning their conference championship, but not going undefeated this season. But I think it's going to be Michigan. I think Michigan is the number 2 seed here. I have them going 11-1 in the regular season, and then, of course, winning their conference championship. Now, you're probably wondering, how did they have one loss? Like, who do I have them losing in the regular season? Well, I do have them losing on the road at Penn State. That game is in the month of November, and that kind of is like where college football playoff rankings really start to shape up. Some upsets happen in the month of November, and I think it's one of those games where Michigan probably loses to on the road, and that's a very tough place to play as well. But I do have them still going to the conference championship game due to a win over Ohio State. I think both of these teams, who decides who wins the Big Ten East this year, I think Michigan is going to do it for the 3rd consecutive year and also win the conference championship for the 3rd consecutive year. And I'm going to put them here in the college football playoff. I'm here for the 3rd consecutive year in a row. I didn't have them in my first 2 predictions. Last year, like I said, I didn't predict Michigan to the college football playoff. I picked Ohio State to win it all last year, and this year I'm picking Michigan to win it all in the Big Ten East. And the reason why Ohio State ends up not in here is because they already have 2 losses. I have them losing to Notre Dame out of the non-conference as well, and then that game against Michigan on the road as well. So Michigan here ends up at number 2. Who will they play here in the Rose Bowl, according to my predictions here? And like I said, I don't feel very confident with 2 other teams here on my predictions, and that's the number 3 and number 4 seeds. I think for the first time ever, we're going to see a couple teams in the college football playoff with a couple losses make the college football playoff this year. And these 2 teams, they ended up winning their conference championship. It came down to a tiebreaker, with Alabama losing to Georgia in the SEC championship. And I got both of these teams at number 3 and number 4 winning their conference championship. But playing Michigan, I'm going to go with USC here as my number 3 seed. I have them winning the Pac-12 championship. Not Not really all that close, though. I mean, I really don't think they'll blow out Washington in the Pac-12 championship. I think that's going to be a game where USC could potentially get upset in, but USC, I had them with 2 losses on the season. I had them finishing the regular season at 10-2. I do have them losing a road game to Oregon, and I also have them losing a non-conference game to Notre Dame. So they're kind of similar to, Ohio State. They get in there after actually they get in there somehow after a loss to Notre Dame on the road, but I don't think it's going to hurt USC's chances to make the Pac-12 championship. I think clearly they're the favorites to win the Pac-12 this year, but that division is going to be so competitive. I mean, last year I predicted Utah to get in there as a Pac-12 team, but that didn't turn out to be the case. Could USC finally do it for the Pac-12? And the Pac-12 is kind of in a little bit of trouble now due to Colorado heading to the Big 12 next year. And USC, this is their last year heading into the Pac-12. So we'll see where the Pac-12 goes from here. But let's go to my number 4 seed now. Who will play Georgia here in the Sugar Bowl? This was a tough one to figure out. It came down really to a tiebreaker between, some teams like Alabama, for example. But you probably will be surprised about this pick. Maybe not. But I do have them winning their conference championship game, and that's going to be the Oklahoma Sooners. Oklahoma is my number 4 seed here. I know people are going to be really shocked about this pick, but also Oklahoma was another 2-loss team. They are another 2-loss team, but Alabama already has 2 losses. And like I said, it came down to a tiebreaker here between Alabama and some other team. And it came down to a tiebreaker here. Oklahoma and Alabama both have, similar records and by the time they get into these games. And Oklahoma, I have them beating Texas in the Big 12 championship. I have them getting revenge on that Texas team. And I think that's how they get in here with a win over Texas. And then Alabama, with them losing their conference championship to Georgia, that allowed me to put Oklahoma here at number 4. So, yeah, it's a shocking pick. I know it's really, a really surprising pick here, but I think these 2 teams, USC and Oklahoma, are going to really surprise a lot of people this year. I think Oklahoma is going to be a lot more better than they were last year, especially when you got Dylan Gabriel coming back at quarterback. He's definitely going to run the table. So these are my 4 teams here for the college football playoff. Georgia as my number 1 seed. That's an easy pick. Michigan, the number 2 seed, is an easy pick, but the 3 and 4 seeds were really hard picks, USC and Oklahoma, so those are my top 4 teams. Before I start my predictions, here are some of the teams that I kind of would have put in here. I would consider to put into the college football playoff bracket, but they didn't just quite, they didn't make it quite enough to get in there. So I have Alabama at number 5, Ohio State at number 6, LSU at number 7, Florida State at 8, Clemson at number 9, and then Oregon State at number 10. So these were 5 teams that I thought about putting into the college football playoff, or I should probably say maybe 6 teams perhaps, but I mean, they were just outside the top 4. Alabama is the best option, I believe, to get in there to the college football playoff. Let's say if USC or, Oklahoma lose their conference championships, Alabama could sneak in there. Ohio State could sneak in there. LSU could sneak in there. It depends on who has the better resume. However, I don't really see an ACC team making into the college football playoff this year. The best options are Florida State and Clemson, but I do have the Seminoles upsetting Clemson in the ACC championship, so that's how Clemson would fall apart at the number 9 spot. Then Oregon State, I don't have them winning the Pac-12 championship, but I think they could sneak in there as a mid-tier team and also a dark horse contender. I think this is going to be a good Oregon State team. I don't think they're going to be really good on both sides of the football. You never know. This could be a really consistent team, though. So these are the teams that I kind of could consider, out of the top 4, but they just didn't quite make it in. But Alabama, I think, is the best option. Ohio State, another option. But LSU, watch out for that team. They could possibly sneak in there. But let's go back to my bracket now, and let's get into our official predictions here. So the number 1 versus number 4 matchup is the Sugar Bowl between Georgia and Oklahoma. I think Georgia clearly is the more talented team here and the more experienced team. Maybe Oklahoma is experienced as well, but I mean, against that Georgia defense for Oklahoma's offense, it's going to be really tough to, get past that Georgia defense. With that being said, I think Georgia wins this one. I think it's not really, maybe a close game, but I think it is a competitive game probably in the first half, but second half, I think Georgia's just got way too much talent on that side of the football. So I think Georgia wins that semifinal matchup if this game were to happen this weekend, and I think Georgia will move on to the national championship. I think that's an easy pick there. Then Michigan versus USC here in the Rose Bowl here. You got Michigan, obviously, the more experienced team. They're the more experienced team as well to make it to the college football playoff. USC, though, they are an underdog here. I mean, I think you would call them an underdog in this game. They got a talented roster filled with great offensive players, but they brought in some transfers as well. Defensively is what I'm concerned about this year for this USC team, but I think we're going to see a much better USC team than we saw last year on the defensive side of the football, perhaps. But this game right here, it will be a shootout. This game could probably go into the 50s and 40s, perhaps. You know, Michigan wasn't a shootout last year with TCU. This time, I think they were out for redemption here after losing the first round, you know, for the last couple years. I think Michigan does defeat USC here. I think they are the better team, the more talented team. Plus, that defense, I think, makes a huge stop there on that USC offense at the later part of the game. So I think Michigan moves on to the national championship, and they will play Georgia here. So my national championship game is between Georgia and Michigan, a rematch from, you know, a semifinal matchup a couple years ago in the playoff. You know, you look back at that game, Georgia was the better team. You know, they were dominant on the defensive side of the football. Michigan was the better offense, but Georgia just shut down their offense. I mean, defensively, when you look at that Georgia team a couple years ago, they were the top defensive line, you know, in the country, and the top, you know, secondary in the country as well. You know, it's hard to, you know, predict against Georgia when you're, you know, predicting them in a game like this, but I think the game is more competitive than it was a couple years ago. Maybe it's a low-scoring type game. But I think Georgia, I think they're the more talented team and the better program here. And I think Georgia's going to win it all this year. They're my pick to win the national championship this year. Like I said, I think Georgia is just way too talented. They have the easiest path to make the college football playoff, and this would be the third consecutive year that Georgia would win a national championship. But this is also the last time that we're going to see the 4-team playoff bracket in the format, because we're heading to a 12-team playoff next year, and that would be really interesting to see because we've had a lot of changes to next year, and not just conference you know, changes and everything, but also the college football playoff, you know, everything. 12-team playoff bracket next year. Looking forward to that, but Georgia is my pick here to win the national championship in 2023/2024. Give me your thoughts down in the comments below. What do you think about these college football playoff picks? Like I said, I don't feel very confident with my 3 and 4 seed picks, but I think, you know, I feel very confident with picking them, but I just don't feel very confident with my 3 and 4 seeds. So Georgia here is my pick. Let me guys know what you think about these playoff predictions, and also give me your 4 teams who do you think will make the college football playoff this year, and give me your national championship prediction as well. And stay tuned here for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports channel.